it's now time for us to mark our buttons. So now the buttonholes will be on the left part of the shirt. Don't forget, please, for the male on the left part, for the female on the right. Now this point is where you have the major difference between a female shirt and the male shirt on the buttonhole application. So now you start from the tip, from the very first one, the collar part. Now you mark. Now usually it's advisable to use the button gap to do the buttonholes, but then I will guide you on how to use your tape to go about it. So now we are marking half an inch, right? So place the tape that way and then mark half an inch that way. So you mark your button, then you place from this half inch you marked, you come down by 3 inches or 2.5 as the case may be. So let's use 3 inches button allowance, right? So you mark 3 inches that way, mark half inch on both ends, meaning center of 3 inches, and then you mark half inch down, that's 3.5. Then start from the end of the one, mark another 3 inches, and then mark half inch down again, right? So this is how you're gonna mark your buttons. Now these buttons will be marked all through until you exhaust all measurements on the shirt length, and then you have it to be the number you have marked. So 3 inches from the end of each button and then half inch down, 3 inches from the end of each button, half inch down, 3 inch at the end of each button, and then half inch down. You will do this to exhaust the whole shirt length button allowance. 3 inches again, you can still go down, but then if you have 4 inches left, you can just ignore it, right? So at the end of 4 inches or 3.5 inches higher, you ignore the last part. So we now have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 buttons on a shirt length of 31. So that is for the recommended number of buttons you might have. They also mark on the cuff as well, then the same half inch, then you mark half an inch that way, now half an inch that way. You are marking the buttonhole on the upper part. The button will be held in on the one that is under, so the one on top is the one that you house the buttonhole. Also mark the same thing here, half an inch button, and then you also mark in that direction. Some persons might need to put button here, but then it's of no use, so you can just ignore it. But then if you want to put button here, you also mark at the center line. If here is 3 inches, you mark at the midpoint, so that you will put button here as well. So it's still okay if you want to put button here, but then I don't put button here, I leave it that way. So guys, we are trying to make buttonholes. So now they have different machines for doing this. This is the regular Brother buttonhole machine. They have several of these, but then you have to learn how to master your own machine to know the settings needed. Now for this one now, we're going to push this to number 2 or 1.5, and then push this to 0, right? So this might be applicable to your own machine as well, but if it's not applicable, please try and find your own settings so you set accordingly. You tighten up the edges so that it will not shift from there. Then you start making your buttonholes. Then you have to, first and foremost, for you that is a first timer, you might use the pieces material to try it out before you make the real buttonhole. Please don't jump into the real shirt buttonhole without knowing how to make buttonholes. At this point, you can now ask for professional help on how to make buttonholes. So once you're able to do buttonholes, you do them accordingly on each of those lines, and then you set them up before you start fixing your buttons as well. Is right, look at how it should be. So I'll repeat this on the whole areas I've marked, and then I will now tear them open, and then the next will be to fix my buttons as well. So now this is how the buttonholes are done. So you take your time, you have to turn your shirt over and over again before you achieve your buttonholes. Though there are machines they use in making an industrial buttonhole, so if you can access it, fine, you pay them, they do it for you. But if you can't access it, you can use your button and zigzag machine to achieve your buttonhole as well. But then you must practice it on a rough material before you jump into the shed buttonhole making. So this is the buttonhole procedures. Now after this buttonhole, you now fix your buttons accordingly, and then our shirt is ready. So if you must have watched this video from the beginning to this point, I know your problem on shirts will be solved by the end of this video. So we are done with the buttonholes now. So we are now going to start fixing our buttons, and then I'll show you the final result of our shirts that we have struggled to make. And then this video has taken me close to 3 hours in production, from cutting to sewing, right? So because I had to do a lot of postings and other work I have at hand, then I think this is one of the most comprehensive and the most complete video I've ever produced as regards to shirt making, right? So now the last one is the one on the collar. Then we're gonna do it and then fix the buttons accordingly as well. So now we are done making our buttonholes, and then I have opened them up. Now you have to use a pen, then you mark the button points accordingly, right? So you have to take time, or can use chalk as well. However you want to do it, you make sure you mark the corresponding points, the points that the buttonholes falls. So you mark them accordingly, right? So take your time to do this. Make sure that the shirt length must be equal before you start marking your button allowances, right? So mark them as shown, right? So just take your time to do all of this. Now all these things I'm showing you, I think is one of the most explanatory videos you can ever see online on shirt making, buttonhole making, collar fixing, cuff fixing, and as well button fixing as well. It's a total complete video. Now this video is not lacking whatsoever you need, so it's just for you to pay attention to it, follow it properly, and then you will arrive at a perfect fitting, right? So make sure you do this, and then you now start fixing. Then you make sure you bring a shirt button. They have different types of buttons, shirt and the regular buttons. You must bring the fancy one that is corresponding to the one that will match your shirt, right? Then the number of buttons you have must correspond to the number of buttonholes you will make or you have made already, and then you fix. Now I'm trying to show you how to use your machine to fix your buttons as well. So what you just do is you have to place these buttonhole buttons at the point you have marked, then set your machine to be static, meaning put it to the 0 point, and then push the zigzag width to 2.2 or 0.2.5 depending on the width of the button opening. Then when you are doing this, you make sure that you don't pedal the machine. Use your hand to roll. And then you check the movement of the needle. It will go in a zigzag form, entering the buttonholes, and then you now sew as many times as you can or as possible, so that you have a nice stitch on your buttons. So now I have finished the first one, and then you do the next holes. Bear in mind that the holes are 2, that's fair, 4 holes, so you do them in 2s. So when you have gotten to these 2s, to these holes, you will sew the 2 holes so that the button will be strong enough, right? Alright guys, so I'm putting the buttons, and then this is the second one, I fix it. Then the third one is what I'm doing now. So you also take your time. You can decide to use your hand needle to fix the buttons if you can't try out this, but then it's good you can try it out on your own. I think it's a whole lot faster and even neater, using the machine to fix the needle, right? So you stitch the needle in the 2 holes that is on the button rather. So you stitch the button on the 2 holes, stitch both of them. That's the 2 pairs of the holes, stitch accordingly. See how the stitching came out. So this is how the stitching came out, right? As you can see. Then you do the next one, cut the threads under as well, and then you proceed accordingly and fix all the buttons. So guys, I will show you the result of the whole buttons after I have fixed them, and then I'll iron the shirts and then show you the result on the mannequin, so that we know what effort I have put in place to make sure I explain these videos properly, from cutting to gumming to everything I have done, and then to sewing, now lastly to the button fixing. So guys, let's await the final results. So guys, as you can see, I have finished fixing my buttons on the buttonhole and my shirt button allowance. The next one I'm gonna do now is for the cuff area. Here, right here, I'm done fixing the button for the cuff. So the next I will do now is to go and iron. After ironing, I will now show us the shirt on dummy, so that we'll take a good look at it and know what we have struggled to produce and know the aftermath effects. So now, after you must have fixed your buttons, you now button it up. So you button them up this way, and after the buttoning, you will now start ironing your shirts, so that you have a nice result. So guys, let's take a look at our shirt. The outcome, you see how it came out, so nice, right? So now this is how our shirt should look like. Look at the inside of the shirt, just like already made, the one you buy in the market. Look at the whole cuff and the whole areas. Look at the side closure, right? Look at it properly, and then this is how yours should be. Look at the down folding. So let's put it on dummy and then see the results on mannequin. Alright guys, this is the color, this is the shirt, the color. See how it's standing properly, right? Then this is, if you button it up this way now, you have it in this form, and this is the whole shirt we have battled to make. And then look at the top stitch on the shoulder, how properly relaxed it is. Then look at the back facing, look at how everything is matching properly, right? Then this is how yours should as well be. And then look at the curve, right? And don't forget, this is Mr. Redefined. Alright guys, thank you for watching. See you in the next video.